Are you counting the Omer tonight?
I will.
I guess we will right now.
Okay.
I don't know. Was somebody else?
I was signed up, but I'm happy for you all to do it if you're doing this.
Okay, we'll do it. All right.
22. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. So let me give you some background on this.
There we go.
I think this is going from my page, Zach.
No, I think it's going from CRC now.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm here. This is Stone Salon. We started this. We were doing this at a nice space in the city, and then everything hit differently, you know, and so we closed up there, and we were doing on Thursday nights, and I thought we should continue this. It's stories and songs and music and talk, and I invite people to join me. It's not all performance oriented, it's talk too, but there's plenty to talk about, plenty to think about now. I know my own work, my own process has been dramatic during this period. Writing just pouring out of me, just so many things. So I have so much material, and a certain kind of material I don't want to bring here in this session because it's too hard. And you know, we all, I think, I'll speak for myself, I'm feeling a lot of tension in this period now, and the difficulty of managing all this is weighing on me, but by the same token, it's produced a lot of good work from me personally. So tonight I thought I would do some gentle things and some sweet things and some beautiful things,
Start counting them now.
and stay away from the more difficult things that also have been coming through me too. I've been writing a series of pieces of poetry in the era of He Whose Name Shall Not Be Mentioned. And I'm not going to do any of those pieces. I keep those for I don't know what, but not for here. So I invited my friend Zach, my pal Zach. He's in Brooklyn. He's going to join me on this. We've made collaborations together. We've known each other a long time, and we're close, and we have a lot of the same interests. And I invited Susan Talvey. She's been hanging around here, and I said, hey, can I interview you on my show? I don't know, it's my show tonight. And she said, yeah, you can do that, because she's doing some interesting things, like eavesdrop outside the room where she lives. And in that room where she lives, I was eavesdropping on her, and she's talking some interesting project that she's working on, and I thought you would talk about that. And then I thought I would talk with Zach about some of our musical pursuits that we share, and some interests that we both have. But the first thing, just let me give some background on this notion of the salon. And then also I'd like to tell maybe a few stories, and I'd like to tell them really long about people that nobody knows, you know, those kind of stories. So but I'd like to start with the salon notion and why I call it that and where it came from. It's also a good story, but I'll abbreviate it. I started going to a salon in Jerusalem that was given by Dov Noy, who lived on the same street as the Prime Minister's residence, and also the architect Mendelssohn had a house there. It's a lovely little street, you know, and I used to pass by it every day, walk to Prime Minister's house when I was students, and Susan and I met. I would walk to school down that street, and Rabid at the time was Prime Minister, and he started to come out of the house the same time that I would walk down the street, and I'd always be carrying this big guitar case. And the guys there was a elevated window, dark windows above the street, sitting there on marked house where the prime minister lived. And one day they stopped me because Rabin was coming out at the same time that I was walking by, and I pretty much walked by every day. So they said, "What do you got in the case?" So I said, "A guitar." And they said, "Open it." So I opened it and they looked at it and they said, "Okay." So every day from then on, when I walked by, I figured they were my friends. So I would wave to them. And it's not the style in that society, not big wavers. So one day I'm walking by at the same time that I always went to school in the morning, and there's Rabin coming out, getting into his car. I wave. He's was definitely not a big, may he rest in peace, a big waver. He looked at me, maybe he grunted, I don't know, but he got into his car. Well, this happened pretty much every day. After that, he would come at the same time. I would walk at the same time. I'd wave at him. He'd look at me, da, 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 da. After a while, he began to acknowledge me, like in the typical style, Israeli style, which is, "Yeah, I see you, you exist. Okay, I'm on with it." And this went on for probably 6, 7 months. So years pass, years pass, years pass, years pass. I'm here. I'm sitting on a dais with the former prime minister. It's Rabin, and he's giving a talk, and somebody invited me. And so I'm sitting up there with him. And I say to myself, "Don't say anything. He's not going to remember you. Don't make a fool of yourself." So it comes later in the evening, he and I just have a moment next to each other. We're sitting right on this elevated stage. So I say to him in Hebrew, I say, "You remember I was the guy who used to walk down your street with a guitar case every morning?" He goes, "Of course I remember you." He says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I live here." So on that same street, Dov Noy lived. Dov Noy was the founder of a folklore society in Israel, and he collected songs and stories. And there could be no better place in the world to do that, since there was 90, 100 cultures in proximity in that small country. And so he collected the stories and songs and categorized them at the Hebrew University. And he was pretty much the founder of that discipline in Israel. And he wrote some very beautiful things. And every Monday night, when if he was in the country, he would hold what he called a salon at his apartment on Balfour Street, and people would come, and you had to have an invitation. And the most interesting people in the country showed up there. And oh my God, they were the most interesting people in the world. So I got an invitation through my friend Howard, and he said, "You should go and sing a song." He loves music, and nobody does music there. So I would go and I'd sing a song, and I became a regular. And he took the idea from his teacher, who was Stith Thompson. Stith Thompson was the founder of discipline of folklore and taught at Indiana University, and raised up many students all over the world, one of which was Dov Noy. And Stith Thompson was a Quaker, and he practiced this Quaker custom of this kind of salon. So Dov Noy took this concept back to Jerusalem, and he practiced this the years that he lived in Jerusalem. He held the salon, and you would sit in the room with him. He'd clear out all the furniture, and all the chairs were along the perimeter of the room. And people just one after another would go and talk and say what they're into, what they're doing, what they're into. And he would comment often on what people were talking about, because he knew so much about so many subjects. So for example, every time I would sing a song, he would tell me all the background of the song and the languages that the song was given in, and all this kind of thing. And every time he came to St. Louis to give a lecture or something, he would seek me out, and I would open up his evening with a song. And it was a very nice thing. And so that's where the concept of the salon came from. And for me, it was some of the more interesting nights that I spent when we were living there. So I thought, try to bring that concept, in some small way to what we're doing here in these spaces that we're occupying now. So it's a combination of things. It's dialogue, a little talk, a little music, a little this, a little that. So that's the concept of the salon that's in my head that I was trying to recreate here. because of this period that we live in now, this era, that this time that we're in, everything is everything is different and just different. So we're also going to try to throw in some things that are of comfort, some gentle, some beautiful material. And because we're in the Omer period now, we're counting so that we make the days count. We're going to make the blessing for the Omer. I'll start with that, and then we'll move on. Every day begins in the evening, of course, of the Omer period, I've been making a poem. And in this period, it's 7 weeks, 7 cycles of perfect 7. And then on the 50th day is Shavuos, where we get our durable wisdom. So we're, I think, the 22nd day tonight, and we're entering. And each week gets an energy, one of the sphirot, one of the 7 lower energies. So each week is given over to a certain contextual energy, and that Rabbi Nachman used to teach that if you paid attention to what that energy was, it was a kind of a spiritual alignment. And I pay attention to it. So the whole week is given over to a specific energy, and every day in that week is the working of another energy on the weekly energy. So that's the kind of the intersection of 2 energies every day. So this week of the Omer, we're entering the week of Netzach, I think it is. Yes, Netzach. And the first day of that week is the notion of Chesed, it's called, which is a pure giving, loving notion. All yes, Y-E-S notion. Within Netzach, so the working of this kind of yes within the context of Netzach that the week is given to. And Netzach has a kind of a feel of both an eternality, eternal, also a kind of has a little bit of a triumphant feel, an ascendant feel. It feels a little overly optimistic for me right now, but that's the point, that it's a spiritual alignment. So I'm going into the week with that intention. So I'm going to read the poem and then make the blessing. And you'll see what I mean. The counting, or more and less. Less, best. More, usually less. There are meetings for that. Let's count the days, says the psalmist, so that the days may count. During the counting, the energies, sphirot, guiding us, whether we know it or not. Your spiritual alignment. Today, too, are working. Chesed, giving. Within Netzach, some sort of ascendance, when ascendance seems remote. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Blessed are you over the counting of the Omer. Today, we enter day 22. I have my friend Zachy with me. Zach is in Brooklyn. I suppose you can see him. I can't tell, really. I'm going to turn on original sound so you sound better. And take a look. Oh, you can't see him. Great. So let me introduce Zach. Zach Fredman. He hails from near where I'm living now. As a matter of fact, he used to live right around the block. And Zachy and I have collaborated on some really beautiful things together. And Zach, a certain time in his life, he took up, we both had interested in guitar, and we both had interest in the classical instrument of the Middle East and North Africa, the Eastern Mediterranean, let us say, the oud, O-U-D or U-D, oud. So that's Zachy playing the oud in the background there. Can you hear it? Beautiful. It's an 11 or 12. It's got 12 pegs, but usually we string it with 11 strings. You have 11 strings, right?
Yeah.
Double courses. And we play what's called the makams. Makamat. Hebrew cognate makom, place. They're kind of partial scales. And they're distinguished by half flats and quarter tones and things like that. Microtones, tones that are closer than two adjacent keys on a piano. Zach has become a really wonderful player. So we did a project together where we recorded the whole Torah, in a sense. We made a poem for every portion, and every portion has a makam, a musical form that's associated with it. So with the poem and the makam, we put them together and we videoed all over New York City. And then we placed them up on YouTube, themakamproject.com, the M-A-Q-A-M project.com, and we did the whole Torah. And then we made a double CD out of it, which turned out extra spectacular. And to me, it was one of my favorite projects, creative projects of my life. It was so beautiful. So I'll ask Zachy maybe to play a little of the Makam Hijaz, which is one of this week's portions. Can you do a little Hijaz?
I'm happy to. Go ahead, Stone.
That's nice, man. Devotional number 4. If you share a bed with someone, take some time on the other side of the bed. Sit there and write something. Make your morning meditation in that place on the bed. Listen to music there. Read. Spend a night on that side of the bed. don't say anything. Turn your attention to the person on the other side of the bed. You. See yourself differently than before the exercise. When you return to your side of the bed, tell your bedmate what you learned, how it felt, what remains from the experience. Write about it, sing about it, draw it, tell the story. Beautiful. Hey, Zachy, let's talk about Ibn Gabirol a little bit.
Yeah, baby.
So, when we connected before, you were talking about a piece that you were working on, the Spanish Jewish poet Ibn Gabirol and Shlomo Ibn Gabirol.
Yeah, I found this poet Najara who was I think later than Gabirol. Gabirol's dates are, is it 13th century or
Earlier,
okay, 11th, something like
10th or
that.
11th.
So Najara is 15th century, and I spent a lot of time with him. I titled one of my albums after him because I not only did I love his poetry, but he felt very much like a boundary crosser. He loved all the music that was being made, and he traveled. He traveled a lot, and he didn't seem to seclude himself with people that were only like him. So I like that quality about him. And I spent a lot of time with his work, but Gabirol, I had never really spent too much time with. And for whatever reason, I guess I've been in a period of composing on and off. And I got this, you can't see it, but right in front of me is a music stand. And on my music stand, I have sheets and sheets and sheets of paper, and they're all my favorite poems. And so when I have the beginning of a melody, I pull out 6 poems that it might work with, and eventually I find the one that it fits best with.
Oh, I
And
like that idea.
And so Gabirol has been sitting here for a little while, and so I just finished a Shachar Avakeshcha, which is one of the more famous ones, and I've probably got another 1 or 2 sitting here that I love. They've got a style, I can feel the poet. It's unique.
You know, there are certain legends that followed him through the centuries. One is that he wrote Adon Olam, the Piyut Adon Olam is a legend that has followed him. Also,
do you believe in the legend?
Yeah, I do, because if you look at that poem, there's such a difference at the end, the last verse, you know? Before the last verse.
It's on my stand.
Huh?
It's on my stand.
Adon Olam asher malach terem kol yitzir nivra leit nasa bechirtzo kol hazai melech shmo nikara Now, in the last verse, that verse is pretty philosophical, and he was like a Neoplatonist kind of philosophical writer. So, hu haya, God was, God is, God will be, that kind of thing. Philosophical language. Hu haya, v'hu hove, v'hu yeh. But the last verse,
Yeah.
Yadoav kiruchi, v'etishan v'ayira. And into your hands I entrust my spirit, the time that I lie down, the time that I rise up, and with my spirit, my body too. God is with me, I shall not fear.
Yeah.
This is a different thing. We've left the realm of philosophy.
Mm.
This is something really personal, really close to the heart.
Ishan is a beautiful word.
And the other thing is that he wrote this other thing that for centuries it was studied under an assumed name that they didn't connect to him. They thought it was given under the name of Avisebron. They thought it was a Neoplatonic Arab philosopher, and so it was studied in the scholastic academies of Europe, training priests. And Rabbi Munk in the mid-19th century, working the Bibliothèque Nationale, figured out it was Ibn Gabirol that was actually Avisebron, and the piece that people were studying, Fons Vitae, was a translation of the original Hebrew that had been lost, called Makor Chaim, and it was a work of Ibn Gabirol. So there's so many interesting stories about him, and not that much is known about him. But the other thing is that he was hunched over, and so he had a hard time with people, and he wanted a woman. He kept asking. He wanted a woman. He couldn't find a woman, and he was passed over for. He was the best of the poets, and he was passed over for the position of poet, and he had some resentment about that, and so there's some sadness about his life that is attached to the legend of Ibn Gabirol, and I don't know, all those things. There's not much known about him, but the few things that are known are touching. So, yeah, this guitar, by the way, that I'm playing is a really excellent guitar. My wife's family, when I met her, they were walking on it, and I rescued it. All those years ago, they were stepping on it and kicking it around there, and I rescued it. It's true. So what are you gonna play something?
Yeah, I think I'll play one of his pieces that I just. It's a little sad, but I'll sing a little bit of it. It's got a sweetness. I mean, I could do that, or we could just keep it sweet. I don't have to do that.
Do it.
Okay, give me a second to tune.
I also have Susan. While he's tuning, I have the celebrated Susan Talvey here, and I'm going to interview her in a minute. And she's preparing in the other room by. She's looking at her notes in the other room, and I'm going to interview her about this project that she's involved in, and that's really interesting and really important at this time, especially now, serving a population that's really, really in difficult place. Take a deep breath. We're all in a difficult place. And then I'll read some other poems, and I think I won't tell any really long stories about people that nobody knows. And then we'll close with the prayer of the hands, which is always a comfort, so that you'll sleep better tonight. Go ahead, Zachy.
Gotcha. vakishcha tzoriumes gabi eroch lefane chashach rivgam arbi לפני גדולתך אמון דבר בהם כי אינך תראה חולמה שבו ליבי מה זה אשר יוכל הלביה לשון לעשות אומה כוחי רוחי בתוך קיר בי הנה לך תתאהב זמרת אנוש על כן עודך באותי העניש מטלו אבי
Oh, I love it, man. That's great. I love it.
We did our first, we got the band, everybody's all over. We got people in Woodstock, we got people in Jerusalem, and we did a little video last week, and it was so much fun. We're gonna try and do another one. So I sent them a recording of that. So everybody's now listening now in their little homes and all.
Did you send it to me?
I think I did.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna send something back. That's beautiful. I love
Oh,
it.
good. I'm gonna send you another one because we moved it up a half step. It's in a
Okay.
funny place on the guitar with the capo, and so
Yeah.
I'll send you another one.
Okay. Hey, can you hang on a second?
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. Gee, I feel like MSNBC. Can you just stay with us? You ready? So a word from our sponsor. I got Susan Talvey here. I found her wandering around the house. I said, Susie, would you be on my...
Zach, I love
Hey,
that.
beautiful
That was
Susie.
so beautiful. Oh my God, that was beautiful. Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm glad you like it.
I asked her if she'd be on the big show. Will you be on the big show? She said, yeah. So here, I'm gonna interview her about what the heck she does in that room where she lives.
It's taking a lot of time.
I don't know what it is. Just talking to people. So Susie, what are you talking to people about in that room in the morning? Because I hear you talking, and I know it's important, and I know you're serving a population that is really underserved. So tell us about it.
Well, it's the story actually goes back to last summer when St. Louis was devastated by all the shootings of the children. And I was invited to a press conference where a group of clergy, city clergy, were going to demand something, some kind of response, that we did something about it. And out of the press conference came a meeting with the governor. who said, "What can I do?" And, of course, we told him what we thought he should do, which was to get some common sense gun laws, but he said no. And we kept coming back with ideas, and one of the ideas we came back with he liked, and that was to create after-school programs for the children who were most at risk. And it wouldn't be just a regular after-school program. There's a joke about this, that Moses goes to Pharaoh and says, doesn't say, "I want a nice after-school program for the slaves' children. I want to get out of here." So, I found myself working on an after-school program, and I felt like I was in a bad.
Joke?
I resisted
Okay.
because I didn't think they'd understand, because really we did need a safe place for the kids to go from 3 till 10 at night is really what we thought. We did some studies, we had some data, and we found that if the kids had a place to go with transportation, with food, with wraparound services, with grief groups, with some trauma-informed services, that maybe we could reduce the violence. So we worked really hard. The governor gave us almost $500,000, and we came up with this really wonderful model, which was to choose not-for-profits that were already working on the ground. So not-for-profits that were already in these hotspot neighborhoods, already had relationships with families, knew the kids, but didn't have any money. So what we thought was, if we could get money and a program director who knew how to work with not-for-profits, who was also a social worker, who could give the not-for-profits the kind of support that they needed, that's the model that we chose. So we identified 7 not-for-profits. They all came up with budgets, and we were ready to go. The space was gonna be in the schools. The schools were giving us food and security. I mean, everybody was chipping in. We got mental health support. Everybody was chipping in. We started, and the schools shut down.
You mean because
of the virus. So we were going for about a week, and then everything shut down. So within a few days, we had to kind of just reinvent the whole program, because we had this money, we had the not-for-profits. So we came up with a new vision, and that was because we had to get out of the schools, and we met with the director of the health department and some of the physicians that work with the populations that we were serving. And they said the number one problem was food insecurity. So food insecurity. Like, people were going to be really hungry because they were depending on the schools to feed their kids,
right.
you see.
Yeah.
So within 4 days, really, and that's why I was on the phone all the time and, just scrambling. Within a few days, we chose a church in the Ville, which is one of the hotspot neighborhoods, because what we did was we formed this council, the Missouri Faith Leadership Council, of clergy who were invested, people whose churches were in those areas and had resources. So one of those churches, St. James Church, we decided that would be the commissary, that would be the hub where we would collect food, but we didn't know where we were going to get food from. But we had faith, if you do it, they'll come, right? And I within really days, and I put out a call to CRC. I put out a call, because people we didn't know where to get food, so I knew we were getting Instacart, right?
To the Central Reform Congregation.
I'm sorry,
because we have people watching here from
maybe from Brooklyn,
very far away, all over the world.
Yeah, right. Anyway, so Central Reform Congregation, I put out a call and I said, look, you're all ordering from Instacart, not all, but ordering from Instacart. Order an extra bag of groceries and have it delivered to the church. And those were the first. That was the first food that we had. We got some other donations, and so in the first week we were able to take care of 75 families. 1 month later, we're probably over 2,000 families. But it's not just that we're delivering it. The concept is so important because, number one, these are people, you know, the portion this week talks about the scapegoat. And
Azazel.
right. And it's not the scapegoat that you blame things on. It's the scapegoat you put your sins on so you can see them.
The sins of the
Right.
community on the shoulders of
Right.
this beautiful yoked beast who carries the sins of the community into the wilderness.
Well, the sin that I've been most upset by is this sin of idolatry that I'm seeing. And the sin of idolatry, we saw it during Ferguson, when people would be more upset about property being destroyed than they were about human lives, right? And, you know, I'm starting to hear that. You know, people more worried about the economy than about the most vulnerable populations that are dying from this virus. And seniors, people in prisons, and
Nursing homes.
right? And also, we know that there are great health disparities in some of the zip codes that are also the hotspots for gun violence. These are becoming hotspots also for the coronavirus. And part of that is because people can't stay in their homes. They need to go get food, you know. They can't stay in their homes because they're the frontline workers. They're our working poor, and they have to get on the bus to go to work. So this program is so wonderful because, first of all, it's not cookie cutter. Nobody just gets a box of groceries. Because we have 7 not-for-profits, we know every one of those families that we're serving. And, you know, we know the household. So we know a grandfather who had to take in his granddaughter because she was being abused by her stepfather. So, you know, he gets what he needs. So this old man is getting feminine hygiene products in his bag for his granddaughter, and her science homework, and her math homework, and grief counseling, and counseling for being abused. She's getting all of these, that's what's being delivered. And he doesn't have to leave his house. He doesn't have to leave his home to get these things because of the grant, we have vetted drivers. We have people who are delivering to people so that the people who can are able to stay in their homes. And, you know, we also have people who are doing data collection, because what we want to prove is that this project, it's a pilot project, and we want to see it funded again. But that when you know, back to that sin of idolatry, when the economy and opening up is more important than people's lives, right? We're starting to hear people say, well, some lives matter more than other lives. We're starting to hear that again, that this many people will die if we open the economy. What kind of crazy talk is that? Nobody should die from this. We should be doing everything that we can to protect every life because every life has infinite worth. Shame on us, right, if we don't figure out a way to save lives through this. So I've been working really hard with this wonderful group of clergy. We've got now food banks helping us. We've got private businesses helping us. And the congregation, Central Reformed Congregation families are also being very generous and donating the kinds of things that we need to make sure that every household gets what they need to get through this. And so that's what I've been working on. And now I'm working on something else, and that is to try to get more testing sites.
In those neighborhoods?
In those neighborhoods. Yeah, in the churches, because people don't really trust testing sites, right? So if you have them in the churches with people that are trustworthy, that have not given them a hard time in the past, then maybe people will come and we'll have more testing. Because every life matters.
Well, that's great. Thanks a lot for
Thanks for asking.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sharing. I mean, part of the concept of doing this kind of dialogue with music and stuff is we always have, when we were at the space in the city here, we always had somebody give a presentation, someone who wrote a book about this, about that, and they give a little talk about what they're into, you know, because it's not only a performance concept, it's also a consciousness raising concept. So we like to have a an episode of somebody talking about what they're into when they're doing something.
Something else I meant
Yeah.
to tell you about that
Mm-hmm.
was that your daughter, Sarika,
Yeah.
has been meeting with the group as well to try to connect trauma-based therapists
Right.
with some of the families that have expressed an interest.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. That's so great. Well, thanks a lot, Susie. Thanks
Welcome.
for showing up to the big show,
Thanks for asking.
and really appreciate your work and your explanation of it. How important it is now, and that we can make these contributions of any kind is so significant now. I mean, we need to be doing stuff. You know, it's so hard to be in the house, but if we can be doing things and stirring things up, it helps on so many levels.
Mm.
So Zach, you wanna play us into something?
Yeah, I'm gonna sing what you talked. I'm gonna sing Yedid Nefesh.
Beautiful.
I could also break it into verses. You want me to sing a verse and then pause for a poem or something?
Excellent idea.
I think I wrote this tune the day after Rosh Hashanah this year. Yedid Nefesh, O Be'arachaman, Meshach Avdach Eretz Enach, Yeharuz Avdach, Kehemo Aya, Ishtachave Moladarach, Kieralo, Yedidotecha, Minofetz Uvechol Teram.
O God of uncertainty, you the unclaimed God, hidden God, secret, touching and touched, the great heart longing, my heart sympathetically broken. O God of brokenness, take my heart and from the pieces build a monument. Each part contains all parts. Build a world out of pieces. Build up. Build it on mirrors, through the espacularia, a mirror, sometimes cloudy, sometimes clear. The glass seen and not seen. There will be a crisis for every minute. Everything shifts. The world does not tilt. Amen.
Nice. Higale nada, ufros חביב עליי, את סוכת שלמך, תאיר ארץ מכבודך, נהגירה ונשמחה מהר ההוא, כי במועד וחננו כמדם.
How God created the world. Like an architect, checking the drawings, I built it with substance and form. Like a poet, I pored over scrolls until words scampered off the page. Like a designer, I took the supernal forms and built them into my creation. Like a composer, I made a chorus for singing, also something hidden from slogans. I don't know how I created the world. It didn't measure up. There was a pillow of comfort to fall back into and determination to fix it. Yeah, man. Hey, Zach, thanks for showing up, man. It's great.
Oh, it's so fun. Thanks for having me.
We got to do this again.
Next week.
You're my man.
Well, Zachy, listening to you in the morning, it's such a gift. You know, this is a difficult, terrible time, but it's opened up worlds of connection that we never took advantage of before.
Yeah.
So
Miss you guys.
appreciate that.
How come your face is so much smaller than mine?
It just is.
What is that? I'm going to close with the prayer of the hands. This is really good. I want to close with a moment of quiet, remembering our teachers, inspirations, influences, all our relations, our beloveds. Take your thumb now and run it up and down your heart line. Now take your hands and put them together against your chest, like Anjali Mudra. Then take your left hand and set it within your right hand, as in the Zohar, the classic text of Jewish mysticism. Pull it to your chest. Bring your physical and spiritual union to your heart line. Spend a moment in gratitude for all that you have received, given, received. Hold your hands away from you in a posture of blessing. Palms out, spread your fingers. Now turn your palms up like the 5-petaled rose, the opening intention of the Zohar. Receive through the 5-petaled rose the blessing. Now you may drop your hands. Leave a moment for the silent expectation for peace, health, awareness, intention, intelligence, sensitivity, compassion. The peace of the near and the peace of the far. The upper worlds and the lower worlds will find each other. Take a deep breath. Say, Amen. Thanks for showing up. Thanks, Zach, Brooklyn, New York. Thanks, Susie. You want to sing a song before we go?
Always. I always want to sing a song.
I thought so.
I do.
So we'll take her song the next time. And thanks everybody for showing up. We don't really know who's watching, but we appreciate it if you are. And good night, everybody. Better days ahead. Good night.
Night.
Good night, Zach.